Alrighty, so my camera seems to not be working right now. So I don't know, I might start this without the camera. Somehow my Elgato is not being detected by any software, so I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, fuck. Okay. Well, we should be good to go in the next few seconds now. Hello everyone, this is Shooter Fantasy, and today I decided to change my format a bit. Instead of doing edited videos when I talk about a specific subject, I'm now going to just live stream it. And basically, it'll have two benefits, I guess. One, you can watch this archive. You don't have to be here to watch these live. And also, if you're inclined, you can talk to me and interact with me during the live stream, so hopefully that will be something interesting. And the topic I'm gonna just cover in the meantime is basically my story of how I came to acquire the skills that I have now, and those skills being primarily just audio, like being able to compose music, being able to program, working with the game engine, all that kind of stuff. Now, it kind of started when I was young. I think one of the first things I tried learning was HTML, which is not a programming language. It's a hypertext markup language. So all that means is, with HTML, it's a language that just tells the web browser how to render stuff. But I was so excited to learn HTML nonetheless, because I was like, I'll be able to make my own websites. And at that time, I was young. Who doesn't want their own website when they're within the age range of like 9 to 13? It's cool. Makes you feel professional. So I thought I was going to do web development. I wanted to do web development when I was younger. And programming I didn't do because I found it way too hard. It was just, every time I tried to learn it, I'd give up. I would always give up every time I tried to learn programming. So how did I come to learn programming? With programming, I think it wasn't until I gave up on 4 separate occasions before I eventually picked up a book on C#. I think I was like 15 at the time. And I read through a few pages, I wrote down the code, and I would hit the run button to have it compile and see what it would do. And then I decided to do things like, okay, well, I think I understand what's going on here. Let's change a line of code and see what happens, and see if it breaks, see if it works. And you know, you get to see the cause and effect of your subtle changes to something that's already established and working. And you just keep, and I would just keep experimenting with stuff like that. And eventually it got to a point where I didn't even finish reading through the book. I just decided, you know what, I think I'm getting the hang of it, just playing around with code and seeing what happens. Because once I started playing around with existing established code, I kind of got the hang for how stuff is supposed to be structured, how stuff is supposed to look, how stuff is supposed to work together. And eventually, because of that, something clicked in my head. Eventually, something clicked. And from there, I was like climbing a mountain. It's like once I got over the first hurdle, which was how the heck do I program to begin with, I learned that with programming, you're always constantly learning. You can know how to, you could have limited programming knowledge, but as long as you know how to use that limited programming knowledge to the best of your ability, and you're able to learn new skills along the way, you should just keep soaring. But usually I think the main problem that people run into when trying to learn programming is they just want to jump in, right? You think, here's this big grand thing I want to make, and I'm going to learn how to program it within a week or a month. And that doesn't happen. And then they're like, well, okay, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to give up. And maybe this just is not for me. But picking up a book on the subject was probably one of the best things I could have done, because the first thing it had me do was do Hello World. The second thing it did was have me... The second thing it had me do was learn what variables were and how to use those. Basically, you can store data in any kind of variable. So if I want to store a string of text, they have a data type for that. If you want to store a type of number, there's a few different types of numbers. You've got integers, you've got floats, you've got doubles. I'm not going to go into detail of how all of those work and what you would use them for. But let's say, for example, I just want to store a number that has no decimal places. I would use an int, and that will store, I think, anywhere from like 0 to around over 2 billion as a number. And if I want to store a bigger number, I'd use something called a long. So basically, it can hold from 0 to an even larger number than an int can. So I learned what those were. And then I learned what types of data I could store on them, what their limitations were. And you just kind of learn how things interlock just by experimenting and reading from the beginning. And not just jumping in and thinking you can work on the thing you want to work on straight away. You gotta, build up the basics. And so that's how I kind of got my start. And from there, it's just upwards progress. So, of course, there's also... Oh, where am I going on? Yeah, so there's also the music, where I was in band for... I started band when I was in grade 6. And funny thing about that was when I was, my mother convinced me to join band because she said, hey, Sebastian, there's going to be lots of girls there. I'm like, ooh, well, that sounds cool. Yeah, I like girls. I'll join band. But, that kind of Trojan horsed me into doing band class. But, very quickly it ended up not being... Very quickly I ended up not being in band for that reason. I was in band because I actually enjoyed it. And one thing I'll say is learning to play an instrument is probably one of the best things you can do if you want to get into writing music. Before you can... I would argue that before you can write music, it's best to learn how to play an instrument, because you get a feel for what's possible, what a musician can actually play when you're composing, and also are in a scenario where there's instances where the band instructor will have certain parts or have certain instruments play their part so that they can get it right. So they'll isolate a certain part, have everyone not playing but that part. So let's say, for example, the flutes need to practice some notes. They have to practice some notes or a melody, and they're kind of messing it up while they're playing with everyone else. So the band instructor will stop everyone else. They'll have say the flutes play their melody separately, and everyone else gets to hear what that melody sounds like without the rest of the band. And this will happen to everyone. It will happen to the people who are playing the trumpets. You'll have the tubas get to play by themselves so that they can isolate, so the band instructor can isolate and critique them. You have the flutes and clarinets and every other instrument have the same thing done to them. So you're getting to hear all the separate parts and what they sound like by themselves. And something like this, I think, is very helpful if you're trying to learn to compose music. You could probably learn how to compose music without this tool, but I think it probably stifles how quickly you can learn how to write music without that. Because even with that, when I first started writing music, I think the first songs I ever wrote were not that great. They were not. And really, it came down to me practicing. I had to experiment with the stuff I had learned from being in band. And I was in band from grade 6 to grade 12. So that might have been 6-7 years. I was also in a few extracurricular band stuff as well. And here's a funny thing. You would not believe how much the stuff I learned from being in band class translates into the music I write now, which ends up being both orchestral and electronic music. I also do piano music too, which I kind of like. I've got this. I wonder if my synthesizer is actually hooked up. Oh, it is hooked up. Okay. Except I can't hear it. What happens if I do that? Yeah. But, that was an interesting experience, and the first music program I started off with was Mixcraft. Basically, I was searching on the internet for a music program to start with, and I knew how to use GarageBand from the few times I'd been in the Mac lab at school. And I was thinking, well, okay, I understand how to use that. I wonder if they have something like GarageBand, but for Windows. And I searched around, I found Mixcraft, and let's see if I can find a picture of what Mixcraft actually looks like. And I'll quickly bring this up. Yeah, so here's what Mixcraft kind of looks like. The image is kind of blurred though, so... But you can get the point. It has the same kind of look and feel as GarageBand, and it was, for me starting out, probably the best program I had ever used. However, it had its limitations, and its limitations were how you can meddle with the audio, or tinker with it. Mixing audio, it's not as proficient in. Being able to route different MIDI signals, not as great, or I don't even think it really had support for it. You could choose MIDI inputs as far as I knew, but I don't think routing was very much a focus in Mixcraft. But I made quite a few songs with it. And see if I can find some of my first songs I ever wrote. Okay, this might have been the first thing. There used to be a game called Atmosphere out there that I used to really love playing when I was younger. And I was like, you know what? I think I was like making a video where I was going to need a theme song. So I was like, okay, I'll make a song that's based on the theme song of this game I like playing. And that's the first thing I ever kind of wrote, which is, well, 6 years ago. And it's just very repetitive. And yeah, so basically 25 seconds of repeated melody. And then there was a huge chunk of time. Oh, okay. I forget the autoplay's a thing. But there's a few songs in Mixcraft that I actually kind of liked. I think this one was probably one of my favorites that I wrote at the time. And this, I think, is 5 years ago now. So, yeah, I might have been writing music for at least a year after that. And I'll just kind of talk over this melody. You can kind of listen to it, but my first year of music, or of writing music, was probably where I learned the most. And actually, if you look here, oh, you know what? I don't even think all my music I've written is even on here. I eventually did go on a deleting spree with a bunch of my music because I did not really like it. I eventually learned to not like my prior music, and it's still, to some degree, I have that. I ended up switching SoundClouds entirely at one point because I was like, you know, this music just doesn't represent how I write music now. But Mixcraft is cool. You had its default instruments I thought were decent at the time. And it also had these pre-done recordings which you could use to write a song. I usually only ever use the percussion bits. These pre-recorded percussion bits. And I think that was mainly because Mixcraft did not have a proper implementation for making custom percussion bits. I think you end up having to use a piano roll, which isn't impossible to use for percussion, but it just takes I feel it takes a little bit more work to have to use a piano roll to do percussion than it is to just use a mix, or FL Studio, which I use now, has a beat pad kind of thing where you just click these click the beats that you want a certain percussion bit to be hit on. And that, I feel, just flows a lot faster when I'm trying to get percussion implemented. So we're going to end that off. And let's see, what was the last song I wrote? So this would have been 4 years ago now. So at this point I was probably composing for 2 years. Hmm. So, eventually, I got convinced to jump ship over to FL Studio. And from there, I also switched SoundClouds. So, we're gonna go to the... I started to dabble into electronic music. Which, when I first started out, I spent a long time trying to figure out where I wanted to actually be when it came to electronic music. I was used to playing in a band where I did orchestral style music. I played a tuba, I played a euphonium, I played a trombone. So I like to write music that had a lot of orchestral bits in it. And doing electronic music was just completely different experience. Okay, I guess my SoundCloud doesn't have all my stuff. Oh well. Okay. So, let's see if I can find the first electronic song I ever wrote. Just to give a idea of how things kind of progress. I find my musical journey a lot more exciting than my journey in terms of learning how to program and stuff. So far, I kind of like the build-up, but, oh yeah, there's a dubstep now. Interesting. Not as bad as I was expecting it to be, considering it's been ages since I wrote that, but on the other hand, there's also quite a bit of stuff that I've improved upon. Like, just how the audio was mixed and stuff wasn't all that great. Okay, so we'll kind of... This is around the middle of this. So I still very much liked orchestral stuff. I liked composing orchestral music. So I think with this song I did a cross between orchestral and electronic music. The only issue though is I'm finding that this beginning drags on a little bit too long. Like, the one thing with the genre is if you're gonna do electronic music, the attention span of someone listening to electronic music is way different than someone who's been in band class and is listening to an orchestral piece. Ah, and there's the dubstep again, which I don't necessarily like the placement of. But hey, this is my interpretation of electronic music when I first started. Always had to have a section where you had a saw that was... saw being an instrument, where you always had to, I always had to have a saw somewhere in the song that had some webs in it. Another thing I'm finding too is my music, I'm finding that the bass saw is overpowering the rest of the song. It's like I can hear nothing but saw right beside the rest of the instruments. And I guess back when I used to compose music, I always put way too much bass in them, I think. So let's look at another one. Ah, my ears. Remember, this composition used to be one of my favorites.
Do you have the slightest idea of what leaving the city would mean?
Yeah.
You'll just die.
Possibly. Everyone's
I think this first excerpt is from Wolf's Rain.
But if life has no purpose, you're dead already.
And I think most of this song was just arpeggiation. Which is, I would do a melody, I'd run it through FL Studio, and have FL Studio break up the note into a bunch of notes, and it would automatically make them rise up and down. Now when I listen to this song, or this composition, I think it just sounds messy. Has a lot of things going on at the same time that kind of just clash with each other. Although there are some parts of this I'm actually kind of liking. Like this part here. I know one thing I used to always do is I was experiment and try to break the walls. Or try and bend the walls a little bit. Even if it ended up being too much. And I think that's enough of that one. Here's an example of a composition that ends up not being so good. Like, how this instrument's mixed and everything does not sound that great. Like, there's some parts I had in place that yeah, I think my biggest complaint is just how the song is mixed. Like, there's some other elements that I can tell that there's some elements to the song that show that I had some competence in how to structure a song, but just mixing. So anywho, let's get on to my next set of 10 songs, which we'll kind of do the same thing with. So this one, I think, ended up turning out really good. I personally think this kind of was a fluke that it came out of me at the time that I wrote it. Because every song after this one, I kind of took another turn where my compositions kind of went downhill. It's like they go downhill and then they go up. I get a really good thing, then I go downhill a little bit more again. But each time I went downhill, I think it was just me getting confident, experimenting more. And then once I got confident with that experimentation again, I would make something that sounded good. I would experiment more. And every time I experimented, I ended up with compositions that, you know, the experimentations got better over time, but every time I started experimenting more, I was going into territory that I was unfamiliar with again. And that would always leave me open to make more mistakes. Which maybe isn't a bad thing, but I personally think that there's a lot of my songs that I should have written them for the practice, but not really put them out there. Or maybe me putting them out there is a good thing. Maybe having something that other people or aspiring musicians can listen to. Maybe that will help them kind of understand how a person grows over time. And you'll kind of see that this song also has the electronic webs in it, but they're a lot better placed than they were in some of the other songs to listen to. They actually feel like they're part of the piece, rather than just, oh, I'm here, and I'm making noise. And then, okay, now I'm gone, next piece. I should really reuse this song in a game or something. I am working on a game project right now, but and I've always wanted to write a game soundtrack. And right now I'm writing a game soundtrack for my own game, but that's kind of cheating, I feel. Okay, so we've got that. Prophecy and Cynthia Mystic. These two things here were probably more experimental, I would say. things to do. Actually, that kind of... Actually, I know what, we can just skip all that. Because after Varium, which we had just listened to, it was a bunch of experimentation that, some of it turned out somewhat okay, some of it kind of turned out sounding weird. And so, the one thing I'll say about this song that we've just got a few seconds into, the percussion's kind of weird, the mixing's kind of weird, and the melodies are just kind of, they don't really stick in your mind very well. Like, they don't have anything exciting about them. So it's very easy for me to not want to continue listening to that. And this song kind of just sounds like noise starting out. Yeah. So this was me experimenting with more concepts and kinda ending up with noise in the end. It was learning noise though. So while it did sound like complete noise, I was still learning, and even if you're writing or composing music and your music doesn't sound how you want it to sound yet, you're gonna make bumps, you're gonna kinda collide into or run into a few walls here and there. But literally just keep composing, because naturally you're gonna get a grasp on things and get better. So let's go to the end of these 8 songs in this. So here you can hear me trying to emulate party music to a degree. And I think this is also when I started experimenting with having transitions between each song segment. And then kind of experimenting with having a melody come up and then bringing it back later, but adding more oomph to it. So you can kind of hear that with this arpeggiation going on at the same time. But again, my biggest complaint is the mixing. The instruments clash with each other instead of blending with each other. So we'll go into some themistic. So the first one is Shadows. And to some degree, I actually kind of like Synthia Mystic. And when I say that, I mean like the songs that I wrote and put under this label. or labeling. They're like weird and abstract sounding. And that's how I felt at the time. I felt weird, abstract. And I started focusing on making my songs focus more on making you feel something. Like, I don't know what it is about my ears, I just really like stuff that has some sort of... I like music that just sounds kind of weird and has... makes you feel stuff. Doesn't necessarily have to have a strong melody or this and that, but just something that's focused on making you feel something. Like, I could not hum this song in a car. It's not that memorable, to be honest. But when I listen to it, it still has something about it that just seems interesting. I don't know if it's just me. And then we'll go to this one. Alright. I think this whole album thing was me kind of experimenting with trance music. And that kind of repeats from there. And then here's the ending song to that. And again, my biggest complaint is just how these songs are mixed. Because that song kind of sounds like it's screaming in your ear every second. Like, every note is, I am here, and I am there, and I will keep screaming in your ear. Like, every note just had nothing changing about it. So, let's check out BGM. This is 8 songs. And probably my least favorite songs. And released July 29th, 2014. This is still 4 years ago then. Wow. Or I guess 3 years ago. But hello, Fanlord. We're going over some of my old music. So this one, at the time I kind of wrote it, or at the time I wrote it, I thought this was one of my best songs I ever wrote. Nowadays I don't really think so. And one thing you'll notice is, yes, I used to make a bunch of silly rap songs as well at one point, which I used to take the angle that where I was like, I'm never gonna be a serious rapper, so let's I'm gonna make songs that are just ridiculous and not people know they're ridiculous. But I did do one serious rap song. Yeah, that song, I did write one serious song, and it was called, Uncertain Apathy. That was probably the only serious song I wrote. And at that time, I had some emotions to kind of push out that I'd been feeling for quite a while. Unfortunately, though, it's not often that
Lord, what was that song about?
I think, that song was about me not being able to feel anything. Never feeling sad. Never feeling angry. Never feeling really anything. I just feeling like I existed. It's like I existed, I would watch the world happen around me, but I had no reaction to it. I think for the longest time
Lord, I liked how you had so many different camera angles in it.
Yeah, I've always kind of liked having more than one camera angle in a video. Because it takes a little bit more effort than just sitting in front of a camera and rapping the entire thing. I would go to different locations and then I would play the song again, I would rap the whole thing again. And then when I finally got to editing, I would line them up to the song and piece them together.
Hello everyone. This is Spain Show.
Spain Show? Did I say Spain Show? But yeah, the Jersey Schizo thing. Yeah, I kind of did those.
Lord, remember, and the death to a satanic beast. That was a real scary story.
Yeah, to some degree, when I wrote those songs, I kind of wrote them not knowing I wasn't gonna win anything out of it. I mean, the person holding the contest is a friend of mine, so it's like.
Fan Lord, you did say Spain Show.
Damn. Well, I guess I messed up the spelling on that, or not spelling, the pronunciation of my own channel name at the time. Thanks to recent YouTube changes, though, Sabine 1 Show is officially probably very much dead now. YouTube.
Lord, how do you know Sir Schizo?
Sir Schizo, I've known him since he was in diapers. My parents are friends with his parents, and they've been family friends for a long time. So, ever so often we used to go to Rainy River, where he lived at the time, and we would visit their house, and I would play with Chase, I would play with his sister, Kaylee, and we were all kids then, and it's pretty cool. So...
Fan Lord, wait, no way. You know him in real life?
Yep, I know him in real life. I'm actually very proud of him.
Do you have his phone number, LOL?
Do I have his phone number? Probably not his current one. I have his Facebook at this point in time. But, I'm actually rather proud of his, how far he's come, and especially with his,
Fan Lord, does he
YouTube
still
thing.
remember you?
Oh yeah, he still remembers me. I built his, last year I even built him a computer. His, I think his laptop, he was complaining it was kind of slow and whatnot. So, he told me, okay, hey Sebastian, what would you be able to do with $5,000? Could you build a computer with that? And I'm like, I could build you something kind of cheaper. You don't really have to spend that much money on a computer. So, I think that he had an Alienware laptop at the time. He said he spent $2,000 on it, but he said it was a piece of shit. So, I was like, you know what? For the same price he actually paid for that, For a little less than that, I could build you a computer that's like, will blow that out of the water. And he loves his computer. He loves his computer. I think I was able to put in an SSD, a hard drive in that thing. And, I put 2 GB hard drive in there.
For a computer. I usually spend $500 on a computer.
Yeah. His computer's very old. His computer...
Lord, you know how to build computers? No way.
Yeah, I built my own computer as well. Recently upgraded the CPU as well. Ended up upgrading to Ryzen. But yeah, I built this computer for maybe... When I'm speaking currency though, if I'm saying $5,000, I mean $5,000 Canadian. Which might be around $3,000 American. But I built him a computer for $1,700 Canadian.
Fan Lord, build me a computer, LOL.
I can build any computer given the money. Although building a computer right now kind of sucks. Cryptocurrency miners have taken all the budget graphics cards, which has kind of made it harder to build a computer in this day and age. Sucks. But yeah, his computer right now, I think it costs 1,700 CAD or Canadian, so about $1,300 or $1,300 US if you were to build his computer. But World of Warcraft, or yeah, just about every game I've put on there runs like anywhere from 200 frames per second to like 300 frames per second. This computer's way more overpowered.
Let's hear your songs.
Yes, let's keep going through my songs. So, here's Vario. So this one, I kind of went orchestral again. I kind of dropped the electronic a little bit. I'm not sure if we're going to go through the whole song, no.
Fanlord, I thought the most was 60 FPS.
60 FPS if you have a regular monitor. If you have a high refresh rate monitor like me, or like I instructed Chase to get, you can, if your graphics card can output more than 60 frames per second, you can see more than 60 frames per second. But most displays, unless you specifically get a high refresh rate monitor, they cap at 60 Hertz, which means they can only show 60 frames per second at a time, maximum. And then even Chase's computer. Yes, his computer can push out 300 frames per second in some games. But you need a computer that, or you need a display that can see 300 frames per second. His monitor, and my monitor, can only see up to 144 frames per second. No one has actually ever bought any of my albums, I don't think. I always kind of put them out hoping someone might buy them. But realistically, you need publicity to do that. And if someone did buy some of these songs, that would be cool. But I don't think they're necessarily worthy of anyone's money. But I'll let the people who listen to these decide, I guess. Yeah, so one thing I've kind of noticed is a lot of these songs also kind of feel like they could be maybe in a movie or in a game. They don't really sound like the kind of song you'd play on your radio.
Fanlord, you should higher the price to $20.
Well, I could, but consider this. Up until now, I've made $0.00 on the album.
Fanlord, I wanna hear you rap.
hear me rap. I wonder if I can even still do that. Okay, so there's some of BGM, Vario, and we've got a huge litany of songs we kind of skipped over.
Landlord
But
higher the price to $30.
$30. Oh. I might follow the rule of supply and demand, where if a lot of people are buying the thing, jack up the price. If not a lot of people are buying the thing, drop the price. That way you can make something... That way people are more likely to buy the thing. Because up until now I've made $0.00 on the thing. So, and it's been out for like, let's see. Oh yeah, May 6, 2015. So that's like 3 years ago that I wrote the song we just listened to. Okay, so got a few other songs here.
Fanlord, I'm leaving, gotta go to work. See you later, good chatting with you.
You too, Fanlord. See you next time. Okay, so now let's go to Vario. Now we have Sona. So we'll kind of listen to the first song. We'll kind of go to the last song. So this one you'll kind of see that I'm kind of gotten more of a understanding of electronic roots. The mixing could be questioned still though. Yeah, so there's a lot of elements in this song that just kind of sound like your everyday electronic song. So which is to say, I might sound decent, but I'm almost thinking this song might be also easily forgettable. And we'll listen to this one. Might be one of my favorites songs that came out of this chunk of songs. Oh wow, it's 2 years ago that I wrote this. So, interesting story. So for the past, I think, 2 years and I guess 6 months, I've been working on a video game called Project NOR. First-person shooter, or first-person arena shooter. and I've been working on the online aspect of the game for ages. So the concept is you can stun other players, you can EMP other players, and if you stun or EMP a group of players, they're kind of immobilized for 5 or so seconds. You can spawn a blockade to block players from being able to chase you, follow you, force them to go use another path. And you can also teleport them to a spawn that's far away from you. And there's some of these abilities have cooldowns, so that you can't abuse them. But this song here ended up being becoming the main theme for that game. Which, at the time I wrote the song, I was not intending for that to happen. So, I thought that was kind of cool. Now, we'll go up. And this is 1 year ago now. And this song kind of appears in some trailers for the game. And at this point, you're gonna hear me kind of critique my own music less. Because, let's be honest, the more recent my music gets, the more biased I am towards liking it. So, I mean, at this point, you guys can make your own judgments. And kind of make your own thoughts on how you think I've kind of improved in my musical journey over time. Okay, so yada yada yada. Let's keep going up. Eventually I got into this thing where I was like writing kind of spooky songs. And you guys are free to listen to some of these yourself, but I'm just skipping through them. Just to kind of get the overall kind of progress. So this is like the perfect song to listen to if you're like, have something, if you're like being chased by a monster, or something's like just trying to get at you. And I feel like I've gotten better at kind of conveying the intention of a musical piece. Like this song's meant to make you feel scared and whatnot, so it's very much focused on that. And I don't really focus on trying to have the most complex melodies or the most complex compositions anymore. I just focus on trying to convey an emotion that I want to convey. And sometimes that involves complexity, and sometimes that involves simplicity. I'm less focused on how complex it is to write a song now. And let's go up a few more. I started doing these things called Simbi commissions, where I don't get actual money, but I get a special currency called Simbi, which basically can be spent in a kind of symbiotic kind of economy. The idea is you can do bartering, so service for a service, or service for Simbi, which you can then spend for a service, on a service, which is kind of cool. So I did a few Simbi commissions to kind of get myself a portfolio of work that I've done for other people. So we'll kind of listen to some of my favorites. And this is a D&D style radio show kind of theme. And I'll be right back. Actually, I'm going to go washroom. But you guys feel to continue listening to this song while I do that. Yeah, I feel like this song's kind of got a big cinematic feel to it. And the person I sent this to, or did this for, loved it, which it's kind of nice. And then it kind of goes back to the original melody that the song had. So, we're going to go through another one, which I think this is probably my most ambitious song in terms of just sound design and whatnot. I wasn't sure if the song was going to be... I wasn't sure... I was uncertain about how the song was coming out when I was writing it. But that's the thing, when you try to push boundaries, you kind of end up with... You end up kind of failing a lot in order to eventually get a result that sounds kind of different and maybe unique. So this one, or this next song, I kind of want it to kind of mimic a computer virus. Just kind of the theme of the person's game was they wanted something that sounded like electronic but also had some life to it. Felt like it was something electronics trying to be human. So I kind of went with that kind of concept, and I did 3 songs for them. We're not going to go through all 3 of them. I'm just going to kind of go through this one where I feel like I experimented the most with. Do do do. So, we're gonna go to my most recent composition, which I won't say is my most creative one, but kind of just shows how my understanding of maybe electronic music has kind of changed. And a person just needed an intro and an outro, and he gave me some songs to kind of base around. So now what I'll do is, if I'm trying to write a composition style that I may not be fully immersed in, I'll listen to a bunch of it for an hour, and then I'll try and see what comes out with the other songs and whatnot I've listened to fresh in my mind. So here's kind of what I've, in a result of that, here's kind of what's come out of that. I did that with the other songs as well. In this one, I kind of try to stretch the limits of how much you can repeat the same melody over and over again. Which my philosophy is, as long as you have something different every time you repeat the melody, you can get away with it to some degree. And, okay. So, an hour and 19 minutes. Okay, so, and that's kind of how my musical journey went. Obviously, I went way into that, into my musical journey for way longer than I would have actually gone through my programming journey. Because my programming journey is not too exciting. Like, I've made a few light controller things, and I've played with Arduino boards and stuff like that, but let's be honest and just say that a lot of people aren't interested in that kind of stuff, and music is more interesting, it's more relatable. Yes, programming is kind of important if you want to do game development, if you want to be a game programmer, that is. But there's many facets to game development. You can be a composer for a game project, you can be an artist for a game project, there's so many other things you can be when it comes to a game project. And the truth is, not a lot of people have the mental capacity or the stubbornness to force themselves to learn programming. Because for the longest time I didn't think I was going to be able to learn it. I learned it by fluke, something clicked in my head and it just started working. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of hours of your brain hurting, and not a lot of people want their brain to hurt. So, I mean, unless you're the kind of person who has that kind of dedication and is willing to be a masochist to your brain for like the first year, a few years, months, however long it takes you to finally get that concept of programming driven into your head. Unless you have that kind of drive to do it, it's kind of hard to stick with it. But music, I kind of feel like it's relatable. Everyone tries to aspire to do it. And I feel like with anything, if you work at it, you can learn it. Just some things are harder to get into than others, and some things you may have a stronger affinity to learning than others. Some people might pick up an instrument to be great at it from day one. Some people might have to work at it. Same with programming. Some people just get the concept immediately, or you're like me, and I had to kind of force myself to learn it because I kind of really wanted to know how to do it. It's just, if you think you can do it, and you want to do it, you got to be able to drive yourself to do it. And I think as long as you can do that, you should be able to learn anything. Because I don't think I'm anyone special, to be honest. I feel like anyone can learn programming. Anyone can learn how to write music. Anyone can learn how to draw. And drawing, I didn't think I could do. And I've been doing that for the past 6 months now. I still got to do a drawing for this month, though. I had made a promise I was going to draw every single day, 365 days. I promised I was going to draw every single day. I have not been able to hold that promise at all. Realistically, I got burnt out so fast. I did it for 2 months, every single day, and then I had to kind of stop and do one drawing a month. Just because my life was getting busy, and finding time to do it was getting harder. So I just focused on doing one drawing a month. I might spend 2 days on that same drawing, 3 days, 4 days, but I just work on one drawing a month instead of trying to do a drawing every single day. Also allows me to kind of not burn myself out. I'm working on only one drawing, so I'll start off one day working on the drawing, and then if I have time later in the month, I'll continue that drawing, and then if that month's done, then that drawing is done. That's kind of how I approach it now. Now let's go on to my DeviantArt. We'll kind of look at some of my drawings, because drawing is kind of a new skill I'm trying to acquire. I have a video that already goes over some of my drawing progress. Oh shit, I forgot there's kind of nudity in there. But I don't get monetized regardless, so who cares anymore? It's artistic nudity. Okay. If you're not okay with nudity, feel free to kind of skip over this. We're going to go through, or actually I'll warn you guys when we're about to get to nude images. So, I mean, so if you want to see my other video, I'll put a card somewhere here if you want to see the video where I go over my first month of drawing. But now here's day 36, where I kind of went to the Wacom tablet again. Is there a way to kind of go to the next one? previous. Okay, so here's another one. Day 37. Day 38. Then I kind of did some practice with shapes. I tried drawing my Xbox One. Here's another drawing. Here's another one. Oh yeah, this is day 41. Day 42. 43. 44, I went to the Wacom tablet. Here's day 45. 47. Oh, 51. 52. Day 53. Day 54. 55, people were kind of bragging on me for not wanting to draw male characters, so I kind of attempted one. I didn't enjoy drawing this drawing at all, and you can tell, and the drawing looks kind of not that great. Day 56, I drew Chloe from Life is Strange. Day 57, I tried to draw Faith from Mirror's Edge. And shading was one thing I had to keep working on. Day 58, I kind of drew a concept for a flying ship for my game project. Day 59, I tried drawing, I forget their names, but these are characters from Nier Automata. Day 61, I tried drawing Harley Quinn. Day 50, oh wait. This is Halloween. I kind of stopped drawing every day, but this is Halloween. I tried drawing Alice from Alice in Wonderland. And then here's a Christmas drawing that I did last month. So I still got to do something for this month. And I'll let you guys be the judge on, you know, how I'm progressing. I think I've made a big difference in how I've been able to draw. We'll go over just maybe one or two drawings that I did when I was first starting out. Yeah, drawing attempts. Okay. So what was the first drawing I ever tried doing? Here is day 1 on the Wacom tablet. And here is April of the same year. But this drawing I drew before I even... This was me not really having any concept of drawing at all. And my sisters actually kind of had to help me with this drawing to kind of guide me in the right direction. So with their help, I kind of ended up with this. And now, here's Christmas, or my Christmas drawing, and here's where I am now. So even that, I'm kind of progressing. And really, again, you just got to keep doing something. If you want to learn something, just keep doing it. You're going to start off shitty, and you're going to have to work out all the crap before you eventually start to get where you want to be. And that's just natural. You're going to start off not being great at something. You're going to slowly get better over time, just naturally. And, you know, if you've made it to the end of the live stream, you've gone through my kind of programming story and whatnot, the only message I want to kind of, or the one message I want to leave behind, the one moral I want to leave behind is, if you want to learn something, learn it. There are some realities that maybe, yeah, maybe you might not be happy that you're not learning as fast as someone else. You might be sad that your work doesn't turn out how you want it to turn out. You might look at somebody else and be like, oh man, I'll never reach how they reach. Don't focus on that. Focus on yourself. Focus on your own progress. One day, without realizing it, you'll find out that you're on the same level as those same people that you look up to. Just don't focus on them. Focus on yourself. Learn how to do the things you want to do on your own time, and do it for you. Don't do it to try and impress anyone. Sure, it's okay to get critiqued and stuff so you can improve, and don't be afraid of asking people for critique. You might get harsh critique, you might get critique that might be demoralizing, but think of it this way: if they're at least telling you what you've done wrong, they're telling you what you should improve, go over that list of things that they've just given you and take their advice and improve on those aspects that they tell you about. They say that, so let's say drawing, they say I need to improve on shading. I'm going to work on shading. I'm going to stop drawing people. I'm going to work on drawing cubes and making sure I have a cube that's shaded the best that I can shade it, and I'll keep drawing cubes. If I'm terrible at eyes, I'm going to draw eyes. I'm going to keep drawing eyes by themselves. If I'm terrible at drawing hands, I'm going to look at pictures of hands, and I'm going to try drawing pictures of hands until I'm satisfied with the result. So just keep that in mind too. Don't be afraid of criticism. Throw your stuff in the air for other people to see and shred. I'm going to use kind of, because it's, no matter what criticism you're given, it's going to feel like people are attacking your work. And most people are not trying to attack your work. They have the best intentions. They're trying to tell you what you've, messed up so that you can improve. Naturally, we want to give criticism. Now, if someone just says, hey, your drawing sucks, and they don't tell you why. They don't give you any reason or anything. They don't give you any reason for why they have their opinion. Their opinion's garbage. Toss it out. Sure, maybe your drawing does suck, but they've told you nothing to improve. So ignore that opinion. Find someone who can actually tell you why. And then work on those things on the things that will improve future drawings or future works. Because music you can get critiqued on as well. Programming can also be critiqued. Anything you do will be critiqued by people. And you'll have people who just, regardless of what you do, they won't like what you do. You'll have people who will always criticize your work. But as long as they're giving you a list of things to work on, work towards those things, you will get better. Just over time. Because you can't expect to learn something in day one. It's not going to happen. Gotta practice. And I've said this in another video too. Just practice. 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 Draw. If you want to draw, draw. If you want to program no matter how much it makes your brain hurt. Want to learn how to write music? Write music. And also be sure to watch tutorials and videos and different resources on like music theory and stuff like that. Just anything you need to do to help you get better at your craft, do that. Always experiment, always try new things. You never know what you might just run into that you enjoy doing. And never say that you can't do something, because the minute you say that, sure, if I say I can't draw, I can't draw. If I say that I can't program, then I can't program, I guess. Because you decide what you can and cannot do. You decide when you do and do not give up. You decide whose criticism that you follow. You decide your own journey, basically. So do what you want to do. Get good at it over time. Don't focus on people who are already good at it. Just focus on yourself and your own skills. You will get there eventually without realizing it. And with that all said, if you liked this stream thing format, feel free to subscribe. I feel like I'm going to continue doing this kind of thing because with YouTube's new algorithm, they are focused on watch hours. Live streams I can do easy. So I will do live streams where I talk about a specific topic. You guys can interact with me and we'll have a dialogue. And for those of you who can't make the live streams, you can just watch these in the background. And, hopefully this works out. And I'm going to maybe try and do 2 of these a week, maybe. Or more. Hopefully, these are things that you guys find useful. I'll figure out what I'm going to talk about next, stream next, whatever. And with that all said, I'll see you guys next time. And if you really want, I do have a Patreon. I have that in the video description down below. If you want to just put down 50 cents, $1. You don't have to put that much money. You don't have to put any money. But since I'm not going to be making any ad revenue off of this anymore, I'm going to be turning to you guys a lot more. And some of you guys may find that annoying. But, I mean, it is what it is. If YouTube is not going to support the creators through ad revenue, even though, yeah, sure, I have not made much money through YouTube, but I've still managed to actually make $200 out of YouTube. You get a few videos here and there that gain a lot of publicity, and you rack in quite a bit of YouTube revenue. And that $100, $200 I've gotten out of YouTube has gone towards games that I've played on this channel and such. So even though I haven't made enough to not make a living, or even though I haven't made enough to make a living off of YouTube, that kind of monetization was still kind of nice because it allowed me to spend money on things to improve the channel or to provide entertainment for you guys. So Patreon's down below if you guys feel like supporting with $1 or more or less. And with that all said, we'll end the video off, and I'll see you guys next live stream. I might not do edited videos anymore, or what I might do is, depending on the situation, I might splice this live stream up and future live streams up after the fact into their own separate videos. But we'll see how that goes. I'll see you guys next time.